Sometimes a man rides into the mountains not to find answers, but to lose his past. Jediah Crane came to the high Montana peaks to disappear. He did not want a future. He only wanted silence, cold air, and enough distance from memory that it would finally stop hurting. What he found instead would change the course of his final years and pull him into a mystery older than the mountains themselves. Jediah arrived at the abandoned cabin with only his dog and a load of grief that felt heavier than any pack he had ever carried. He was 63 years old, and his body showed it. His knees ached with every step. His hands were thick and scarred from decades of trapping and hard work. His face was rough and lined, shaped by wind, sun, and long winters that did not forgive weakness. The man he had been once, a husband, a shop owner, a quiet town fixture, felt like someone else entirely now. The cabin sat high above the tree line, where the pines thinned and the wind never truly rested. It had belonged to an old trapper who died alone one winter, leaving no family behind. The cabin was rough but solid, built by someone who understood that mistakes in the high country meant death. One room, a stone fireplace, a narrow bunk. That was all Jediah needed. His dog Rufus ran inside first, nails clicking against the wood, nose working overtime. Rufus was a blue heeler, gray around the muzzle, loyal to the core. He had been Jediah's shadow since the day Sarah died. The only living thing that stayed when everything else fell apart. Sarah had been gone 3 years, and Jediah still counted the days. Cancer had taken her slowly, cruelly. Toward the end, she had made him promise not to rot in their house surrounded by memories. She told him to go back to the mountains, to live, not just exist. Jediah had tried to honor that promise, but the silence of the cabin felt less like peace and more like waiting for the end. The first week passed in hard labor. Jediah patched the roof, cleared the chimney, fixed the corral for his horse, and stacked enough firewood to survive an early winter. His muscles screamed, but the pain grounded him. At night, he sat by the fire while Rufus slept nearby, and the mountains pressed in with a silence so deep it felt alive. It did not take long to notice the wolves. Tracks along the creek, scat near game trails, distant howls that echoed through the dark and made Rufus lift his head. Jediah was not afraid. Wolves usually kept their distance. Still, something about these signs felt different. Closer, bolder. One morning, while checking a trap near a beaver pond, Jediah found something that made his skin prickle. The trap was empty, the bait gone, surrounded by wolf tracks, and among them were smaller prints, bare human footprints, not shaped like boots, not stumbling or random. They moved alongside the wolves, matching pace, sometimes overlapping. Jediah knelt in the frost, staring at the ground. A human had been here. Barefoot, running with wolves. He told no one. There was no one to tell. His nearest neighbor lived miles away and had once warned him about strange things in the high timber. Jediah had assumed it was mountain talk. Stories born from isolation. Now he was not so sure. Over the next weeks, the signs continued. Bone piles arranged with care. Scratches on trees at odd heights. The feeling of being watched. Rufus sensed it too. He spent more time on the porch, staring into the forest, whining softly like he could not understand what he was smelling. Then, one evening, just after sunset, Jediah saw them. A pack of wolves stepped out of the trees at the edge of the clearing. 7 of them. Large, powerful, moving with calm confidence. And with them was a girl. She moved with the pack as if she belonged there. Sometimes on 2 feet, sometimes on all 4s. Her clothes were rough leather, handmade. Her hair was long and tangled. She looked young, maybe 16, but there was nothing fragile about her. She moved like something shaped by survival, not society. Jediah froze. His coffee went cold in his hand. He watched as the wolves and the girl crossed the clearing and disappeared back into the forest like ghosts. That night, sleep did not come. Wolves howled close to the cabin, circling. Within their voices, Jediah thought he heard something else. A sound that was almost human, but not quite. Rufus pressed against his leg, uneasy but quiet. By morning, the tracks told the truth. Wolf prints everywhere, and barefoot tracks that walked right up to his door, paused, then turned back toward the trees. The girl was real. For the first time since Sarah's death, Jediah felt something stir inside him that was not grief. Curiosity, purpose, fear mixed with wonder. That evening, he acted on instinct. He placed food on a flat rock near the cabin. Meat, bread, dried fruit. Then he retreated inside and waited. The wolves came first, cautious and silent. They circled the food, but did not touch it. Then she appeared. The girl moved low, alert, testing the air. She grabbed a piece of meat and retreated, eyes fixed on the cabin. Her gaze caught the moonlight, sharp and intelligent. She took the food and vanished. This continued for nights. Jediah never approached, never spoke. He simply watched, learning her patterns, respecting the distance. On the sixth night, everything changed. Gunshots echoed from down the mountain. 3 sharp cracks. Men's voices. Rufus barked wildly. Then came a sound that froze Jediah's blood. A wolf's cry of pain. The girl burst into the clearing, dragging an injured wolf. Blood darkened its fur. Behind her, 3 armed men emerged from the trees. They claimed to be hunters, said the wolves were killing livestock, said the girl belonged back in town. Jediah stepped onto the porch with his rifle. The girl crouched over the wounded wolf, eyes wide with fear, not fear of the wolves, fear of men. Jediah felt something hard settle in his chest, a decision made before thought could interfere. "The girl stays," he said. The standoff held. Then the rest of the pack appeared, silent and deadly, surrounding the hunters. Outnumbered, the men backed away, promising to return. When the danger passed, the girl looked at Jediah with something new in her eyes. Not fear, not trust, something in between. She lifted her hand, palm up. Jediah lowered his rifle and reached out in return. That night, wolves entered the cabin for the first time. Jediah cleaned the injured wolf's wound while the girl watched closely, learning. When it was done, she touched his hand. A thank you without words. The cabin no longer felt like a place to die. It felt like the beginning of something dangerous, impossible, and alive. And Jediah Crane knew his quiet ending had just been taken from him. The girl and her wolves stayed through the night. Jediah had expected them to leave once the wounded wolf was treated, to fade back into the forest, the way they always had. But when the fire burned low and the wind howled outside, they remained. The wolves formed a loose circle around their injured packmate, bodies pressed close for warmth. The girl curled beside him, one hand resting on his chest, her breathing slow and steady. Jediah sat in his chair with his rifle across his knees, watching. Rufus lay near the fire, uneasy but calm, as if he understood that this was not an enemy, but something else entirely. When dawn came, pale and cold, the girl woke instantly. Her eyes opened sharp and alert. The first thing she did was check the injured wolf. She touched the bandage carefully, then looked up at Jediah. He nodded. "He's going to live." She made a low sound, almost a hum, and relaxed slightly. Over the next few days, a strange routine formed. At dawn, the wolves and the girl vanished into the mountains. Jediah worked. He cut wood, checked traps, hauled water, and repaired what needed fixing. By evening, as the light slipped from the peaks, they returned. The wounded wolf healed fast. By the 3rd day, he was limping instead of dragging his leg. By the 5th, he was walking almost normal. The girl lingered longer each night. She sat on the porch steps while Jediah worked nearby, watching him closely, not like a curious child, but like a hunter studying something new. Jediah talked to her, not because he expected her to understand, but because silence felt wrong now. He told her about the weather, about the mountains, about his dog. Sometimes without thinking, he talked about Sarah. The girl listened, always listening. One evening, Jediah tried something new. He took a piece of chalk and a slate he had found in the cabin. He drew a circle. "This," he said slowly, tapping it, is a circle." He handed her the chalk. She stared at it, confused. Then she tried to copy him. The shape was uneven, broken, but it was close. Her eyes widened. Not fear, wonder. From then on, learning became part of their evenings. Jediah pointed to objects: fire, water, table, dog. She repeated sounds, rough and broken, but each night they became clearer. Rufus became her ally. She touched his fur gently. Curious, Rufus stood still, tail wagging, proud to be trusted. But peace never lasts long in the mountains. On the 7th morning, Jediah rode out to check his farthest trap line. Every trap had been smashed. Bent metal, broken chains. On a nearby tree, someone had carved words deep into the bark. Last warning. Jediah felt the weight of it settle into his bones. When he returned that evening, the girl sensed it immediately. She stepped close, making a questioning sound. "They're coming back," Jediah said quietly. "Those men." She listened. Then she did something unexpected. She pointed at him, then at herself, then at the wolves behind her, together. That night, Jediah did not sleep. The next morning, he decided he needed help. There was only one man nearby who might understand. He saddled his horse and prepared one of the mules. The girl watched closely. "We're going down the mountain," Jediah said. "Just for the day." She hesitated, clearly uneasy. The lower country meant danger, men, noise, things she did not understand. Still, she followed. The ride took hours. As they descended, the girl grew tense, glancing back toward the high peaks again and again. The rancher listened as Jediah explained everything: the wolves, the girl, the men hunting her. "She's been talked about for years," the rancher said quietly. "A wild thing up in the high timber." "She's not a thing," Jediah replied. The rancher nodded. "No, she's not." He warned Jediah that the hunters were gathering more men, that they planned to come after the first snow. When they rode back up the mountain, the girl was silent. She clutched a silver coin Jediah had given her, turning it over and over in her fingers. The wolves greeted them at the cabin. The girl moved among them, making soft sounds. She was warning them. Preparations began. Jediah reinforced doors and windows. He cleaned his rifles. He counted ammunition. He taught the girl simple commands: hide, stay, run, danger. She learned fast, too fast. She also began teaching the wolves. Jediah watched as she showed them positions around the cabin, places to watch, paths to retreat, signals. She was not just surviving, she was planning. When the first heavy snow fell, Jediah knew time was nearly gone. On the 4th morning after the snowfall, smoke rose from the forest below. "They're here," Jediah said. The girl stood beside him, eyes fixed on the smoke. No fear, only focus. The first encounter came that afternoon. 3 men approached through the trees. They were careful, but not careful enough. One fell into a hidden pit the girl had dug days before. Wolves appeared from nowhere, circling, snarling, never striking, only driving panic. Gunshots echoed uselessly. The men fled. That night, the cabin was quiet. Too quiet. The next day, shots rang out again. Not aimed, just pressure. On the 3rd day, silence returned. Rufus growled at the ceiling. Jediah looked up just as boards creaked above them. "They're on the roof," he said. Wolves erupted upward, scrambling onto the cabin roof. Men shouted. Someone screamed. Bodies slid across snow and wood. The attackers fled again, leaving blood behind. Jediah knew the truth then. They would not stop. That night, the girl spoke a word for the first time. "Jed." His breath caught. She pointed at herself, questioning. He thought of Sarah, of a name she once loved. "Luna," he said softly. "Your name is Luna." She repeated it. "Luna." Something changed in her eyes. But danger was closing in fast. When Jediah scouted the hunters' camp days later, he saw something that chilled him more than any wolf's howl. Dynamite. They planned to destroy the cabin. When he escaped and returned, Luna listened as he explained. She studied the ground, then drew a rough map in the snow. She was thinking like a warrior. That night, they decided to strike first. Under darkness, wolves created chaos. Jediah slipped into the camp and scattered the explosives. But he was discovered. A gun raised. Then Luna burst from the shadows. She saved his life. They barely escaped. When dawn came, Jediah knew the war was not over. It was only beginning. And the next choice Luna would make would tear her world in two. The night Luna saved Jediah changed everything. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs felt like stone. Wolves flowed through the forest around them, silent and fast, guiding them away from danger. When they finally stopped in a narrow canyon hidden by rock and trees, everyone collapsed. Man, girl, dog, wolves, all breathing hard, all alive. Luna stood over Jediah, hands on his shoulders, eyes searching his face. "Jed," she said again, stronger now. "I'm here," he answered. "You did good. You did real good." But the danger was not finished. 3 days later, just after dawn, Rufus barked at the edge of the clearing. Not an alarm bark, something confused, careful. A woman stepped out of the trees. She was unarmed, travel-worn, her face pale with fear and hope mixed together. Her eyes locked on Luna the moment she saw her. "Please," the woman said softly, "please don't run. I'm not here to hurt you." Luna froze. Jediah moved forward, rifle lowered, but ready. The woman swallowed hard. "My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm looking for my niece. She was lost in these mountains 15 years ago. Her name was Elizabeth." Luna's body trembled. The woman took a small object from her coat, a broken music box. She turned the key. A soft melody drifted into the cold air. Luna's breath hitched. Tears ran down her face before she understood what they were. Something deep inside her remembered. "My sister sang this to her," Margaret whispered. "Every night." Luna shook her head, stepping back, confused and overwhelmed. The gray wolf moved to her side, growling low. "She's my blood," Margaret said, "but I won't take her by force." Before anyone could speak again, gunfire cracked through the trees. Cutter and his men emerged, weapons raised. The music box shattered in Margaret's hand. Chaos exploded. Cutter laughed. "Looks like I get paid after all." Luna looked at Jediah, then at Margaret, then at her wolves. She stepped forward. She raised her hands. She offered herself. "No," Jediah shouted, but Luna turned back once, eyes wet, voice steady. "Family protect family." They took her, bound her, dragged her into the trees. The wolves howled in grief. Jediah stood frozen for only a heartbeat. Then something old and fierce woke inside him. He turned to Margaret. "We're going after her." They tracked through snow and forest, guided by the wolves. Cutter had taken Luna to an abandoned mining camp deep in the mountains. At nightfall, they attacked. Wolves struck from every direction. Men screamed. Guns fired wildly. Jediah and Margaret cut Luna free. Cutter tried to stop them. He failed. By dawn, Cutter's men were scattered, broken, and fleeing. Luna was safe. They rested in a hidden canyon as the sun rose. Wolves formed a protective ring. Luna slept between Jediah and Margaret. When she woke, she took both their hands and joined them together. "Family," she said. Weeks later, winter settled in. Luna made her choice. She would live between worlds. Winters with Margaret near the valley. Learning words, learning letters, learning people. Summers in the high country with her wolves. Jediah stayed in his cabin, but he was no longer alone. When spring came, Luna returned with the pack, running through the clearing with laughter in her voice. Jediah watched from the porch, Rufus at his feet, and felt peace settle into his bones. He had come to the mountains to disappear. Instead, he found family. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Jediah Crane knew he was exactly where he belonged.